No one believes what this kid did with this ferocious bull. Johnny stood in the middle of the dusty corral, his bare feet planted in the dry dirt. The bull Thunder snorted just a few feet away, its red, furious eyes locked on the boy of only 8 years old. The crowd around him screamed for him to get out of there, but Johnny didn't move an inch. "Get out of there, kid. That critter's gonna trample you," shouted Mr. Harold, the ranch owner, his hands shaking with nerves. But Johnny just whispered something no one could hear. The bull, which had taken down 3 grown men that morning, suddenly slowed its breathing. Its tail stopped thrashing violently. "Easy, Thunder," Johnny murmured, stretching his small hand toward the animal. "I know you don't want to hurt anyone." What happened next left everyone speechless. The fiercest bull in the region, known for its aggression, slowly lowered its head and stepped closer to the boy. The story had begun 3 months earlier, when Johnny's family lost everything they had. Joe, his father, had worked as a cowboy on Mr. Harold's ranch for over 15 years. Mrs. Mary, his mother, took care of the little cottage where they lived at the back of the property and helped in the main house's kitchen when needed. Everything changed the day the news came that the ranch was being sold. Mr. Harold had taken on huge debts and couldn't keep the property anymore. The new owner, a businessman from New York City, had already made it clear he'd let go of all. The old workers. "Mary, I don't know what we're going to do," said Joe, sitting at the wooden kitchen table, his head in his hands. 45 years old, no education, no land. Who's going to hire me?" Mrs. Mary, a woman of 40 with prematurely graying hair from life's worries, held her husband's hand. "We'll figure it out, Joe. We always do." Johnny, who was playing on the floor with pieces of wood, looked up. "Dad, why can't Mr. Harold keep the ranch? 'Cause he owes too many dollars, son, and the man who's buying don't want us here anymore." The boy didn't quite understand what it meant to owe money, but he saw the deep sadness in his parents' eyes. That night, he decided to talk to Thunder, the bull that lived in the farthest pasture from the house. Ever since he was little, Johnny had a strange connection with animals. While other kids were afraid to get near the cattle, he could approach even the fiercest critters without them showing aggression. Mrs. Mary always thought it was dangerous, but Joe knew his son had something special. "Mom, I'm going to go to the pasture," Johnny said after dinner. "Johnny, you're not going near that bull again. How many times have I told you?" "But he likes me, Mom. He only gets mad at other people." Mrs. Mary sighed. Ever since Johnny turned 8, he'd gotten even more stubborn, and this habit of talking to animals worried her. Johnny slipped out of the house quietly. The full moon lit the path to the pasture where Thunder grazed alone. The bull was kept separate from the other animals because of its aggressive temper. It had already hurt 2 cowboys the year before. "Hey, Thunder," Johnny whispered, stepping up to the wire fence. The animal lifted its heavy head and looked at him. Unlike how it acted with adults, Thunder walked calmly toward the fence. "You're sad too?" the boy asked, reaching out to touch the animal's muzzle. Thunder snorted softly, as if it understood every word. "We're gonna have to leave here. Dad says the new man doesn't want us." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just getting started. Now continuing. In the following days, the situation grew even more tense. The ranch's new owner, Richard Montgomery, arrived to inspect the property. He was a man around 50 years old, sharply dressed, driving an imported car, and speaking arrogantly to everyone. "Harold, I want all these workers out by the end of the month," said Richard, walking around the ranch as if he already owned it. "I'm bringing my own team." Mr. Harold, a 60-year-old man who had inherited the ranch from his father, felt his heart break at the workers' reactions. "Richard, these folks have worked here for decades. Joe knows every critter on this ranch. Wouldn't it be better to keep at least some of them? I don't care. I want new, more modern people. And that house where they live," he said, pointing to the cottage where Johnny's family lived, "is coming down. I'll build a storage shed in its place." Joe, who had been listening from a distance, felt his legs go weak. It wasn't just the job he was losing, but also the place where he'd raised his son and built his few happy memories. That night, Johnny overheard his parents whispering in the kitchen. "Mary, we'll have to move to Chicago. Maybe I can find work as a bricklayer or laborer. And Johnny, how will he go to school? Where will we live?" I don't know, Mary. Honestly, I don't. Johnny pretended to be asleep, but every word felt like a knife to his chest. He didn't want to leave Thunder, didn't want to leave the place where he'd been born. The next day, Richard returned to the ranch with a veterinarian from Springfield. I want you to examine all the animals, Richard told the vet. The ones that aren't useful, we'll sell to the slaughterhouse. Mr. Harold tried to protest. Richard, these animals are part of this ranch's history. My father. Your father isn't here anymore, Harold, and soon neither will you be. I need animals that turn a profit, not old, troublesome critters. The vet began inspecting the cattle. When he reached the pasture where Thunder stood, he stopped at the fence and shook his head. That bull's too aggressive, no good for breeding, too old. Best to send him to the slaughterhouse. Johnny, hiding behind a nearby tree, felt his world collapse. Thunder couldn't go to the slaughterhouse. The bull was his friend, the only one who truly understood him. Doctor, Johnny shouted, stepping out from behind the tree. Thunder isn't bad. He only gets mad because people are mean to him. The vet laughed in the boy's face. Kid, you don't know a thing about animals. That bull's dangerous. He's hurt people before. But he likes me, watch. Johnny ran to the fence and called out. Thunder approached immediately, gentle as a dog. Richard watched with interest but didn't change his mind. That doesn't mean anything. A child doesn't understand business. The critter's going to the slaughterhouse. That night, Johnny made a decision that would change everything. He would prove to everyone that Thunder wasn't a problem animal. He'd show that the bull just needed kindness. The boy waited until everyone was asleep and slipped out quietly. The ranch was swallowed in darkness, lit only by starlight. Johnny knew every inch of that place, every stone on the path. He reached Thunder's pasture and found the bull lying under a tree. Hey, big fella, Johnny whispered. I need your help. Thunder stood and came closer. Johnny opened the pasture gate, something he'd never done before. Come with me, let's show them you're good. The bull followed Johnny like a tame dog. The two walked slowly to the heart of the ranch, where the main house stood. Johnny had an idea. If he could get Thunder to obey simple commands in front of everyone, maybe Richard would change his mind about sending him to the slaughterhouse. Sit, Thunder, said the boy, mimicking the commands he'd seen adults give to dogs. To his surprise, the bull actually sat, like an enormous dog. Good boy, now stand up. Thunder obeyed again. Johnny was so excited he didn't notice they'd made enough noise to wake Mr. Harold, who was sleeping in the main house. The man got out of bed and went to the window to see what was happening. What he saw left him frozen in shock. The boy, Johnny, was in the middle of the yard, commanding. The most dangerous bull on the ranch, as if it were a tame animal. Good Lord, murmured Mr. Harold, waking his wife. Come see this, Catherine. Mrs. Catherine, a woman of 55, joined her husband at the window. Harold, that boy's gonna get hurt. Call Joe. Wait a minute. Just look at what he's doing. Johnny kept giving commands to Thunder, who obeyed each one. The boy made the bull walk in circles, stop, sit, stand. This is impossible, whispered Mrs. Catherine. That critter's taken down grown men. Mr. Harold was thinking fast. If Johnny could really control Thunder like that, maybe there was a way to save the animal, and perhaps even his family's situation. Suddenly, Joe came running toward the yard. Johnny, get out of there right now, shouted the father, desperate. The loud yell startled Thunder, who began to grow agitated. The bull stood quickly and started snorting. Dad, no, Johnny cried. You'll scare him. But it was too late. Thunder, confused by the shouting, began showing signs of aggression. His eyes turned red and he started kicking. Joe ran toward his son, but Mr. Harold was faster. The ranch owner appeared with a rope and managed to lasso Thunder before he hurt anyone. Johnny, come here now, Joe yelled, pulling his son away from the bull. Mrs. Mary arrived in tears, running. My boy, you almost died. How could you do? Something like this, Johnny cried, not from fear but frustration. He wasn't going to hurt me. You're the ones who scared him. Mr. Harold managed to lead Thunder back to the pasture. When he returned, he found the family gathered in the yard, with Johnny still explaining what had happened. Joe, said Mr. Harold, I need to talk to you. The two men stepped away from the women and the child. Harold, I'm sorry about my son. He doesn't know the danger. Joe, your boy's got a gift. I saw everything from the window. That kid commanded thunder like he was a trained dog. Joe stared at his boss, confused. I'm serious, Joe. Johnny made that bull sit, stand, walk in circles. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. But he's just a kid, Mr. Harold. That's exactly what makes it so incredible. Joe, maybe your son's the solution to our problems. How so? Mr. Harold glanced toward the main house where he could see the outline of Richard sleeping in the guest room. Richard said he's sending Thunder to the slaughterhouse because the animal's aggressive. But if I can prove the bull can be tamed, maybe he'll change his mind. And if Johnny really has this gift with animals, Mr. Harold, I don't want to put my boy in danger. I know, Joe, but think about it. If we can impress Richard, maybe he'll let you stay. He's a businessman. If he sees your son can turn problem animals into gentle ones, he'll want to use that. Joe stayed silent for a long time, looking at Johnny, who was now being comforted by his mother. I got to talk to Mary, he said finally. Of course, but Joe, don't take too long. Richard's leaving tomorrow morning, and next week he's coming back with the papers to finalize the sale. That night, Joe and Mary talked late into the night about Mr. Harold's proposal. Child, I don't want my son turning into a circus act, said Mary firmly. Mary, you saw how he was when he found out Thunder was going to the slaughterhouse. What if this is really the only way to save our situation? And what if it goes wrong? What if the boy gets hurt? And what if it works? Mary, we don't have many options. In the city, we don't even know where we'll live. Mary looked out the bedroom window, watching Johnny asleep in his small bed. The boy had cried himself to sleep, worried about Thunder's fate. I'll only agree if it's in a safe place with fences with people around, and only if Johnny wants to. We'll talk to him tomorrow morning. The next morning, before Richard even woke up, the family gathered in the kitchen for coffee and to discuss the proposal. Johnny, said Joe, kneeling in front of his son, Mr. Harold saw what you did last night with Thunder. I didn't mean to disobey, Dad. I just wanted to show he's gentle. We know, son. And Mr. Harold had an idea. He wants you to show Richard how you can make Thunder obey. Johnny's eyes widened. Really? And if I can do it, Thunder won't go to the slaughterhouse. It's possible. But Johnny, you have to promise you'll only do it if everything's safe, with plenty of people around. I promise, Dad. Mrs. Mary was still hesitant, but seeing her son's excitement, she decided to support the plan. Mr. Harold came into the kitchen shortly after, already aware of the family's decision. Richard will be down for breakfast soon. I'll tell him about Johnny's gift and see if he's willing to watch a demonstration. What if he doesn't believe it? Asked Mary. He'll believe it when he sees it. Richard came down for breakfast in a foul mood. He'd slept poorly, annoyed by the ranch noises, and wanted to settle business quickly so he could return to the city. Good morning, Richard, greeted Mr. Harold. Sleep well? This ranch is too noisy at night. In the city I'm building here, I'll get rid of these loud animals. Mr. Harold took a deep breath before speaking. Richard, before you make any decisions about the animals, I'd like you to see something. What are you talking about? Joe's son, Johnny, has a special gift with animals. Last night, I saw him commanding Thunder like he was a tame dog. Richard stopped eating and stared at Mr. Harold as if he were crazy. Harold, are you telling me an 8-year-old kid is controlling the meanest bull on your ranch? Exactly. And I'd like you to see it with your own eyes. That's ridiculous. Kids don't control bulls. Then you got nothing to lose by watching, right? Richard sighed, clearly annoyed at what he saw as a waste of time. Fine. But if this is some kind of show, you'll regret it. Half an hour later, everyone gathered around the makeshift corral Mr. Harold had prepared. It was a small but secure fenced area where the cowboys usually trained horses. Johnny was nervous but determined. Mrs. Mary held Joe's hand tightly, praying everything would go well. Richard leaned against the fence, his expression bored and skeptical. Where's the bull? He asked, checking his watch. Bringing him. Now, replied Mr. Harold. A few minutes later, Thunder was led into the corral. The animal was clearly agitated by the crowd, especially Richard, whose aggressive energy he sensed immediately. Well, said Richard sarcastically, where's the miracle? Johnny slowly approached the fence. The adults tensed, ready to act if something went wrong. Hey, Thunder, Johnny said softly. Easy, big fella, these are just folks who want to know you better. The bull looked at the boy, and his posture changed instantly. His aggression visibly lessened. Richard raised an eyebrow, but still wasn't convinced. Johnny stepped into the corral, moving slowly and speaking softly to Thunder. The animal approached him gently. Sit, Thunder, Johnny commanded. The bull obeyed immediately. Richard widened his eyes but tried to keep his composure. Stand up, said Johnny. Thunder stood. Now walk around me. The bull began circling the boy as if dancing. Richard was speechless. He had never seen anything like it in his entire life. Stop, commanded Johnny. Thunder halted instantly. This is impossible, murmured Richard. Mr. Harold smiled, seeing the plan was working. Johnny, show Mr. Richard how Thunder obeys you, said Mr. Harold. Johnny made the bull sit again, lie down, stand, and walk forward and backward. Every command was followed without hesitation. Finally, Richard shook his head in surrender. Boy, he called, how do you do this? Johnny walked toward the fence with Thunder following behind like a dog. I talked to him. Critters get mad when people are mean to them. But if we're kind, they're kind too. Richard was thoughtful for a few minutes, then he turned to Mr. Harold. How much do you want for this boy? Richard, protested Mr. Harold. Johnny isn't for sale, he's Joe's son. Then how much do you want to keep working here? Joe stepped forward, seeing an opportunity. Mr. Richard, we just want to keep living and working here. We don't need much. What if I wanted the boy to work specifically with troubled animals? I have other ranches with aggressive critters. Mrs. Mary stepped in protectively. My son is a child, sir. He needs to study, to play. Of course. I'm talking about a few hours a day, on weekends, and naturally he'd be well paid. Mr. Harold realized the plan had worked better than expected. Richard, maybe we can discuss this more calmly. Yes, let's talk. But I'll be clear. If the boy truly has this gift, you can stay. I'll even raise Joe's pay. Johnny smiled, happy to have saved Thunder and his family's situation, but none of them knew that decision would bring far greater consequences than they imagined. In the following days, Richard canceled the layoffs of the oldest workers and began planning how to use Johnny's gift to improve the ranch's productivity. Joe, Richard said 3 days later, I want you to start teaching Johnny about the behavior of different animals. He needs to understand more than just instinct. Mr. Richard, he's still a kid with extraordinary talent, and wasted talent is lost dollars. Mrs. Mary didn't like where things were heading. She sensed Richard saw Johnny more as a tool than a child. Joe, I'm worried, she told her husband that night. That man wants to use our son. Mary, at least we have a place to live and steady work. And Johnny seems to enjoy working with the animals. But he's 8, he should be playing, not working. Let's see how things go. If it hurts Johnny, we'll stop. The next weekend, Richard brought a bull from another ranch. The animal had turned aggressive after getting shocked by an electric fence and now attacked anyone who came near. Johnny, said Richard, I want you to try calming this bull too. The boy approached, but something was different. The bull didn't respond like Thunder. It seemed more scared than aggressive. He's afraid, Johnny told Richard. Someone hurt him. Doesn't matter, can you make him obey or not? Johnny tried to get closer, but the bull backed away, clearly traumatized. I need more time, said Johnny. He doesn't trust people yet. Richard grew impatient. Time is money, kid. Either you can do it or you can't. For the first time, Johnny failed to calm an animal right away. This left him confused and sad. Dad, Johnny said to Joe that night, why doesn't that bull like me? Son, every critter's different. Some need more time to trust folks. But Mr. Richard got mad at me. Joe grew worried. He didn't want his son feeling pressured to always succeed. Johnny, you don't gotta please everybody all the time. You're just a kid. But Richard didn't see it that way. In the days that followed, he started bringing more troubled animals for Johnny to work with, always demanding quick results. Some critters responded well to the boy, others didn't. Johnny began to realize his gift didn't work on all animals, especially those that had suffered serious trauma. The pressure started getting to Johnny. He began having nightmares and losing his appetite. Mary noticed the change in her son's behavior. Joe, our boy's getting sick from all this pressure, said Mary. watching Johnny push food around his plate without eating. "I'll talk to Richard. Won't do no good. That man only cares about dollars." Mary was right. When Joe tried talking to Richard about giving Johnny a break, the businessman was firm. "Joe, either the kid works or you'll leave the ranch. It's that simple." "But Mr. Richard, he's just a child who can make me a lot of money. I got other ranchers interested in his services." Joe returned home with a heavy heart. How could he explain to Mary they had no choice? That night, Johnny overheard his parents arguing again about his situation. "I won't let them use my son like some circus act," Mary said, upset. "What do you want me to do, Mary? Go back to Chicago with no money, no job, no home? At least our boy would be free of this pressure." Johnny felt the whole mess was his fault. If he hadn't shown his gift with Thunder, maybe his folks wouldn't be going through this. The next day, he decided to talk to Mr. Harold, who'd always been kind to his family. "Mr. Harold," Johnny said, finding the man fixing a fence, "can I talk to you?" "Sure, Johnny. What's wrong? Do you think I'm a problem for my parents?" Mr. Harold stopped what he was doing and knelt before the boy. "Why'd you ask that?" "'Cause they keep fighting over me, and Mr. Richard gets mad when I can't make the critters mind." Mr. Harold sighed. He too was worried about how Richard was treating Johnny. "Johnny, you ain't a problem. You're a special kid with a rare gift. But that don't mean you gotta use that gift to fix grown folks' problems. But if I don't work with the critters, Dad'll lose his job. Let me talk to Richard. Maybe we can figure out a better way." Mr. Harold did try talking to Richard, but the businessman wouldn't budge. "Harold, you don't understand business. That boy's a gold mine. I can make good money renting out his services to other ranchers. But he's a child, Richard. Needs time to be a kid. Poor folks' kids don't got time to be kids, Harold. They gotta work." Things got worse when Richard decided to organize a demonstration for other ranchers in the region. He wanted to show off the child prodigy and land service contracts. "Joe," Richard said, "next Saturday, I'm bringing 5 ranchers here. I want Johnny to show his skills with at least 3 different critters." "Mr. Richard, Johnny's been struggling lately. Then he'd better improve fast. Because if he doesn't impress these men, you can start looking for another place to live." Mary overheard the conversation from the kitchen and felt her blood boil. That night, she made a decision. "Joe, we're leaving this place." "Mary, where to? With what money?" "It doesn't matter. I'd rather struggle in Chicago than watch my son be exploited like this. What if we try one more time? Maybe Johnny will do well in the demonstration and Richard will ease up. And if he doesn't do well, what if the pressure is too much for him?" Johnny, who had heard the whole conversation, came out of his room. "Mom, I can do it. I won't let you down." Mary hugged her son, tears in her eyes. "Sweetheart, you've never let us down. You're just a kid. You shouldn't have this kind of responsibility." "But I like working with the critters, Mom, and if I can help Dad keep his job." "Johnny, you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." But Johnny had already made up his mind. He would do everything he could to make the demonstration a success. In the days leading up to the event, Johnny spent hours training with Thunder and other animals on the ranch. He wanted to make sure everything would go perfectly. Mr. Harold watched the boy working so hard and felt his heart ache. That child was bearing a responsibility that wasn't his to carry. On Friday, the night before the demonstration, Johnny was so nervous he threw up his dinner. Mary was beside herself. "Joe, look at our son. This can't go on." "Mary, it's just one more day. We'll figure it out afterward." "No, I won't let my son get sick over dollars." Mary stormed out, determined to confront Richard. She found the businessman on the porch of the main house, drinking whiskey and talking on the phone with other ranchers about the next day's demonstration. "Mr. Richard," Mary said, interrupting the call, "I need to speak with you." Richard hung up, annoyed. "What is it, Mary?" "My son is sick from nerves. He's only 8 years old." "So, you want me to feel sorry for him?" "In life, you have to get used to pressure early. He's a child. He's a source of income. And if you want to stay here, the kid had better understand his role." Mary wanted to hit the man but restrained herself. "Sir, with all due respect, my son is not your property. As long as you live on my land and eat my food, he works for me, and he'd better work well." Mary returned home furious and resolute. She talked with Joe, and together they made a difficult decision. "Johnny," Joe said, sitting on his son's bed, "tomorrow you'll do the demonstration, but it'll be the last one." "What do you mean, Dad?" "The day after, we're leaving this place." Johnny sat up in bed, frightened. "But Dad, if I do everything right, maybe Mr. Richard will stop being mean." "Son, people like Richard don't change, and we don't want you to keep suffering like this. But what about Thunder? I can't abandon him." Joe and Mary exchanged glances. They hadn't thought of that. "Son, Thunder will be fine. Mr. Harold will take care of him." "Promise?" "I promise." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. On Saturday morning, 5 ranchers arrived at the property to watch Johnny's demonstration. Richard had promised them an unforgettable show. Johnny woke up with a stomachache and a low fever. Mary wanted to cancel everything, but Richard was unmovable. "If he doesn't do the demonstration today, you leave the ranch tomorrow with nothing." Johnny dressed slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his small shoulders. Mary helped him get ready, whispering words of encouragement. "My love, you'll do your best. And no matter what happens, Daddy and Mommy will always love you." "I know, Mom, but I want everything to go well." "I want that too, son. I want that too." The ranchers gathered around the makeshift corral. They were well-dressed men, some having traveled from far away just to see the child prodigy. "Gentlemen," said Richard, taking on the role of host, "today you'll witness something unique. This 8-year-old boy can tame animals that no adult can control." Johnny stepped into the corral, visibly nervous. His hands trembled slightly, and he avoided looking directly at the ranchers. The first animal brought in was Thunder. Johnny breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his friend. At least with him, he knew everything would work out. "Hey, Thunder," Johnny said, approaching the bull. The animal responded immediately, moving toward him with docility. Johnny made Thunder sit, stand, and walk in circles. The ranchers were amazed. "Extraordinary," murmured one of them. The second animal was a mare that had become aggressive after being mistreated. Johnny had worked with her all week and made some progress. At first, the mare resisted, but Johnny spoke softly to her until she calmed down. He managed to get her to follow a few basic commands, though not as easily. As with Thunder, the ranchers remained impressed, but Johnny could feel the pressure mounting. The third animal was the surprise. Richard had brought a bull from a neighboring ranch, one Johnny had never seen before. It was a young bull but had developed extreme aggression after a traumatic experience. "Richard," whispered Mr. Harold, "this boy has never worked with... To this animal, it's dangerous." "That's exactly what will make this demonstration even more impressive," Richard replied with a confident smile. Johnny approached the fence where the bull stood. The animal immediately showed aggression, snorting and kicking. The boy tried to move closer slowly, speaking softly as he always did. But this bull was different. There was something in its eyes Johnny had never seen before, a deep, inconsolable rage. "Easy, big fella," Johnny whispered, reaching out his hand. The bull backed away, clearly distrustful. Johnny tried again, but the animal moved even farther back. The ranchers began murmuring among themselves. Richard was growing nervous. "Johnny," Richard said, trying to keep his voice low, "do something." But Johnny was realizing this animal was unlike any other. There was a deep sadness in its eyes, mixed with a rage that seemed impossible to soothe. The boy tried approaching once more, but the bull charged the fence, making everyone step back. "That critter is really mean," said one of the ranchers. "If the boy can tame it, I'll hire his services on the spot." The pressure grew even heavier. Johnny could feel all eyes on him, waiting for a miracle. He took a deep breath and tried to connect with the animal as he always did. But something was blocking that connection, something Johnny couldn't understand. "Please," Johnny whispered to the bull, "I just want to help you." The animal stopped kicking for a moment and looked straight at Johnny. There was something in its gaze that made the boy realize this bull had suffered more than any animal he'd ever met. Johnny made a risky decision. He opened the gate and stepped into the bull's space. "Johnny, no!" cried Mrs. Mary, desperate, but the boy kept moving forward slowly. The bull stood still, watching his every move. "I know someone hurt you," Johnny said, stopping a few feet away, "but I won't hurt you. I promise." The bull tilted its head, as if trying to understand the boy's words. Johnny sat on the ground, a tactic he had never used before. He wanted to show the critter he wasn't a threat. "You don't have to be afraid of me," Johnny continued. "I've been scared of big folks who yelled at me too." Something in the boy's voice reached the animal. The bull slowly approached, still wary but clearly curious. Johnny stayed seated, letting the critter come at its own pace. The ranchers were completely silent, hypnotized by the scene. Finally, the bull got close enough to sniff Johnny. The boy slowly reached out and touched the animal's muzzle. "You're a good fella," Johnny whispered, "just sad." The bull let itself be touched, and Johnny knew he'd won the first battle, but he understood commands would be impossible right then. The critter needed time to trust fully. Johnny stood up slowly and began walking around the corral. To his surprise, the bull followed. It wasn't the spectacular show Richard had promised, but it was something even more impressive: the genuine connection between a child and a traumatized animal. "Sit," Johnny said, testing if the critter would obey. The bull hesitated but finally sat. The ranchers burst into applause. They'd never seen anything like it. "Up," Johnny commanded. The bull obeyed again. Johnny managed a few basic commands, but sensed the animal was still very unsure. Still, what he'd accomplished was extraordinary. "Gentlemen," Richard said, beaming, "this is what I promised. The boy can tame any critter." The ranchers gathered around Richard, eager to hire his services. "How much do you charge a day?" one asked. "Depends on the critter and the distance," Richard replied, already calculating profits. Johnny left the corral emotionally drained. He'd impressed the ranchers, but something felt wrong. That bull wasn't truly tamed. It had only trusted him for a moment. "Johnny," Richard said, approaching, "you outdid yourself today. These men want to hire you." "But the bull isn't healed," Johnny said. "He just trusted me a little." "Doesn't matter, they were impressed. But if I work with him again, he might get mad." Richard grew irritated by the boy's honesty. "Johnny, you got to learn to sell your work. If they believe you fixed the critter, let them believe it." Johnny didn't quite understand, but he realized Richard was asking him to lie. "I can't lie about the critters," Johnny said. "It'd be dangerous for everyone." "You'll do as I say," Richard snapped. Mary, who'd overheard, stepped forward. "Mr. Richard, my boy told the truth. If he says the critter isn't fully tamed, it isn't." "Mary, y'all don't understand business. Those men want to hire Johnny. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. A chance for what? To put my boy in danger." The argument grew heated when Mr. Harold approached. "Richard, maybe we should talk this over calmly." "Nothing to discuss, Harold. The boy works where I say, with the critters I pick." "And if he gets hurt?" Mary asked. "Comes with the job." Mary had reached her limit. She took Johnny's hand and started walking away. "Come on, Johnny, let's pack our things." "Hold it," Richard shouted. "You've got a contract with me." "A work contract, not slavery," Mary shot back without stopping. Richard was furious, but knew he couldn't force them to stay. The ranchers, who'd seen part of the argument, began questioning if they really wanted any part of this business. "Richard," said one of them, "if the boy's own family is worried about his safety, maybe we should reconsider." "No," said Richard, desperate not to lose the deal. "It's just a misunderstanding. The family will stay." But Mary had already made up her mind. That afternoon, she and Joe began packing their few belongings to leave the ranch. Johnny was torn between the sadness of leaving Thunder and the relief of no longer facing so much pressure. "Mom," said Johnny, helping pack the clothes, "what if we can't make it in the city?" "We'll manage, sweetheart. It might not be easy at first, but we'll manage." "And Thunder? Who'll take care of him?" Mr. Harold promised he'd look after him well. Johnny went to say goodbye to Thunder that evening. The bull seemed to understand it was a final farewell and became more affectionate than usual. "I'll miss you, big fella," said Johnny, hugging the animal's neck, "but we'll see each other again someday." Thunder snorted softly, as if agreeing. Mr. Harold appeared in the pasture, tears in his eyes. "Johnny, you'll always be welcome here, and I'll take care of Thunder like he was my own son." "Thank you, Mr. Harold." You've always been good to us. You've always been a special family." On Sunday morning, the family left the ranch. Richard didn't even say goodbye, still furious over losing his gold mine. The interested ranchers left without closing the deal, leaving Richard feeling like he'd missed a big opportunity. Johnny's family rented a small room in a boarding house in Springfield. Joe got a job as a helper at an auto repair shop, and Mary started taking in laundry. Johnny enrolled in the local school and, for the first time in his life, got to live like a normal kid. But he never forgot Thunder or the other animals on the ranch. 6 months later, Mr. Harold came to town looking for Johnny's family. "How are you all?" he asked, visibly worried. "We're fine, Mr. Harold," Mary replied. "What brings you here?" "I need your help. Richard's going broke." Joe raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "After you left, he brought in other troubled animals, trying to make them obey. But without Johnny, the critters got even more aggressive. 3 cowboys have already gotten hurt." "And Thunder?" Johnny asked anxiously. "Thunder's fine, but Richard wants to sell all the animals to the slaughterhouse. Says he can't handle them anymore." Mary's heart tightened. "Mr. Harold, we can't go back to that situation." "I know, Mary, but I'm here with a different offer." "What kind of offer?" "I've managed to save up some dollars, and I'm buying the ranch from Richard. He's desperate to sell." Joe was surprised. "You're buying the whole ranch?" "With the bank's help, yes. And I want you all to come back and work with me. But this time, it'd be different." "How so?" "Johnny wouldn't have to work with the animals unless he wanted to, and only with full safety. And you'd all get a share in the ranch's profits." Johnny looked at his parents hopefully. "Can we think about it?" Mary asked. "Of course, but don't take too long. Richard's pushing to close the deal fast." That night, the family talked at length about the offer. "Mom," said Johnny, "I want to go back to be near Thunder." "I know, sweetheart, but you have to understand working with animals can be dangerous. But if it's just sometimes and always with people around." Joe was thoughtful. "Mary, maybe it's a good opportunity. Mr. Harold's always been honest with us." "And if things go bad again?" "This time would be different. We'd be partners, not employees." "And could Johnny keep going to school?" "Of course. He would only work with the animals on weekends if he wanted to." Johnny was excited about the possibility. "Mom, please. I promise I'll study hard and only work with the critters when it's safe." Mary looked at her son and then at her husband. She could see hope in both their eyes. "All right, but on one condition. The first time we notice it's harming Johnny, we stop everything." "Deal," said Joe, hugging his wife. A week later, the family returned to the ranch. They found everything very different. Richard had sold a lot of equipment to pay off debts, and the property was in much worse shape. But Johnny didn't care about any of that. He ran straight to the pasture where Thunder was. "Hey, big fella," Johnny shouted, approaching the fence. Thunder lifted his head and, recognizing the boy's voice, trotted toward the fence. The reunion was emotional. "I missed you so much," Johnny said, stroking the bull's muzzle. Mr. Harold approached, smiling. "He wasn't the same without you, Johnny. He's been sad all these months." "I was sad too, but now we won't be apart anymore." In the following months, life on the ranch changed. Mr. Harold kept all the promises he had made. Johnny continued studying in Chicago and only worked with the animals on weekends, always under adult supervision. The family received a better house and a share in the ranch's profits. For the first time in a long while, they felt safe and respected. Johnny developed his own method for working with traumatized animals. Instead of forcing immediate obedience, he spent time getting to know each one, understanding their past and their specific needs. "Every critter is different," Johnny explained to Mr. Harold one day. "Some need affection, others need time, and some just want to not be afraid." Mr. Harold was impressed by the boy's wisdom. "Johnny, you understand animals better than many grown veterinarians." "That's because I talk to them. Most people just give orders." Johnny's new approach began yielding extraordinary results. Animals once considered impossible to tame slowly started trusting humans again. The fame of the boy who talks to animals spread through the region, but this time in a positive way. Ranchers came to the property not to exploit Johnny, but to learn from his methods. "How do you do it?" asked a visiting rancher. "It's simple," Johnny replied. "You have to be the critter's friend before you can be their owner." The rancher laughed at the simplicity of the answer, but realized there was deep truth in those words. Mary watched her son with pride. Johnny had kept his special gift, but was now using it in a healthy, balanced way. "Joe," Mary said one night, "I think we made the right decision." "I think so too. Look how happy our boy is." Johnny truly was happy. He could be a child most of the time, studying, playing, but he could also use his special talent to help animals in need. A year after returning to the ranch, Johnny was playing with Thunder when he noticed something different in the animal's behavior. "Mr. Harold," Johnny said, looking for the man, "I think Thunder is sick." "Why do you say that?" "He's quieter than usual, and he didn't want the fruit I brought him." Mr. Harold called the vet, who confirmed Johnny's suspicions. Thunder had an infection that, if left untreated, could become serious. "How did you notice this?" the vet asked Johnny. "The symptoms are almost unnoticeable." "I know him. When you're truly friends with critters, you can tell when something's wrong." Thunder's treatment lasted 2 weeks. Johnny stayed by the animal's side every day, talking to him and keeping him company. "You're going to be okay," Johnny would say. "I'll take care of you." Thunder made a full recovery, and the vet was impressed by the boy's dedication. "Johnny," the vet said, "have you ever thought about becoming a vet when you grow up?" "I have, but I want to be a different kind of vet." "How so?" "I want to be a vet who talks to critters, not just examines them." The vet smiled, realizing the boy truly had a unique vision for animal care. 2 years passed. Johnny, now 10 years old, had further developed his skill with animals. But more importantly, he had learned to balance this gift with his life as a normal kid. He did well in school, had friends, played like any child, but on weekends he helped out at the ranch with critters needing special care. The ranch thrived under Mr. Harold's management, who always consulted Johnny before making decisions about the animals. "Johnny," Mr. Harold said one Saturday morning, "I need your opinion on a tough case." "What case?" "A rancher from Riverdale has a mare that turned aggressive after losing her foal. She won't let anyone near her." Johnny grew thoughtful. "She's grieving," he finally said. "Critters get sad too when they lose someone they love. Do you think you can help her?" "I can try, but it'll take a lot of time and patience. The rancher is willing to wait as long as needed." Johnny agreed to meet the mare, but set his own conditions. No rushing, no high expectations, and he'd stop if he sensed he was causing the animal more stress. The mare, named Star, was indeed in deep mourning. When Johnny first saw her, he noticed a sadness in her eyes that touched him deeply. "Hi, Star," Johnny said, approaching slowly. "I know you're sad." The mare looked at him but didn't come closer. Johnny didn't force it. He sat on the ground at a safe distance and began talking to her. "I've been really sad too," Johnny said. "When I thought I'd lose my friend Thunder, I cried a lot." The mare tilted her head as if listening. "But you know what I learned? That when you love someone, that love stays in your heart forever, even when they're not with you anymore." Johnny kept talking to Star for over an hour, always keeping his distance, always respecting her space. By evening, as he was leaving, Star took a few steps toward him. "Good girl, Star," Johnny said, smiling. "I'll come back tomorrow to talk some more." The work with Star lasted 3 months. Johnny visited her every weekend, always talking, always moving at her pace. Slowly, Star began to trust him. First, she let him approach, then touch her, and finally brush and care for her. "Johnny," the mare's owner said, "you've worked a miracle. Star's gentle again." "It wasn't a miracle," Johnny replied. "It was patience and kindness." "How can I repay you?" Johnny looked at his parents, who had been there through it all. "You don't have to give me anything. I like helping critters." The rancher insisted on a reward, which Johnny's parents accepted and saved for the boy's future education. Over time, Johnny built a reputation for helping critters with emotional troubles. But he always kept his conditions, working only on weekends, always supervised, always respecting the animal's pace. Mr. Harold was proud to see how Johnny had matured, finding a healthy balance between his gift and his normal life. "Mary," Mr. Harold said to Johnny's mother. "You've raised a special boy." "He's always been special," Mrs. Mary replied. "I just needed people who respected that." One morning, Johnny was helping his father fix a fence when they saw a cloud of dust approaching down the ranch road. It was Richard, the former owner, driving an old car that clearly showed he was in bad financial shape. "What could he want?" muttered Joe. Richard stopped the car and got out, visibly uncomfortable. "Harold," said Richard, walking up to Mr. Harold, "I need to talk to you." "What do you want here, Richard?" "I'm in serious financial trouble, and I heard the boy still works with animals." Mr. Harold grew suspicious. "So what?" "I want to propose a partnership. I have contacts who'd pay top dollar for the kids' services." Johnny, who'd overheard the conversation, stepped forward. "No thanks," said Johnny, surprising Richard with the firmness in his voice. Kid, you don't even know how much money we could make." "I don't want to make money by exploiting sad critters," replied Johnny. "I want to help them be happy." Richard tried to argue but realized the boy had changed. He wasn't the insecure child he'd once known. "Johnny," said Richard, "you're wasting a talent that could make you rich." "Being rich isn't more important than being happy," Johnny answered. "And I'm happy helping critters, not using them." Richard saw he wouldn't convince anyone and left frustrated. Mr. Harold put a hand on Johnny's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, son. You've learned to value the right things in life." "I learned from you and my parents," Johnny replied. Mary, who'd witnessed the whole scene, hugged her son with tears in her eyes. "My boy is growing up and becoming a man of character." As Johnny grew older, his work with animals became more sophisticated and respected. He developed his own techniques, always based on patience, respect, and understanding the emotional needs of animals. By 12, Johnny was known throughout the region as the boy who healed animals' hearts. Veterinarians began seeking him out for difficult cases, not to exploit his talent, but to learn from his methods. "Johnny," said Dr. Anderson, "an experienced vet. You have an approach I've never seen in my 30 years of practice." "What's the difference?" asked Johnny, genuinely curious. "You treat animals as individuals, with their own feelings and stories. Most professionals treat them like objects." "But they are individuals," said Johnny as if it were obvious. "Every critter has its own personality, fears, and joys." Dr. Anderson was amazed by how naturally Johnny spoke about something many adults took years to understand. "Johnny, when you're older, would you like to work with me? We could revolutionize how we care for animals." Johnny was excited by the offer, but said he needed to talk to his parents. That night, the family discussed Johnny's future. "It's an incredible opportunity," said Joe. "Working with a respected vet could open so many doors." "But Johnny's still a child," said Mary. "I don't want him to lose his childhood just thinking about work." "Mum," said Johnny, "I could study veterinary medicine while learning from Dr. Anderson. It'd be like an internship." "And you'd still live here with us?" "Of course. And I'd keep taking care of Thunder and the other ranch critters." Mr. Harold, who'd been invited to the discussion, gave his opinion. "Johnny, I think it's a unique opportunity. But it has to be at your pace, no pressure." After much discussion, the family agreed to accept Dr. Anderson's proposal, but set clear conditions. Johnny would continue his normal schooling, live with the family, and the work with the vet would be treated as a side activity, not a job. Richard accepted all the conditions and was happy to have Johnny as his apprentice. The first case Johnny helped Dr. Anderson with was a dog that had been abandoned and developed extreme aggression out of fear. "Johnny," said Dr. Anderson, "I've already tried all the traditional methods. The dog doesn't respond to anything." Johnny observed the animal for a few minutes before speaking. "He's not aggressive, he's just very scared." "How do you know?" "Look at the position of his ears, the way he holds his tail. He's trying to look dangerous so people won't come near and hurt him." Johnny slowly approached the dog, sitting on the ground to be at his level. "Hey, big fella," Johnny said softly. "No one here is going to hurt you." The dog growled, but Johnny could tell it was a defensive growl, not an aggressive one. "I know you've been through a lot," Johnny continued, "but you're safe now." Slowly, very slowly, the dog began to relax. Johnny kept talking to him for over an hour. Dr. Anderson watched in fascination. He'd never seen anything like it. By late afternoon, the dog let Johnny touch him. "How did you do that?" asked Dr. Anderson. "I showed him he could." "Trust me, I didn't force anything." "And how did you know he wouldn't attack you?" "Because I understood he was scared, not angry. A scared critter only attacks if it's cornered. So I gave him space." Dr. Anderson realized he was learning as much as he was teaching in this partnership. Over the next few months, Johnny helped Dr. Anderson with dozens of difficult cases, always with the same approach: patience, respect, and understanding. Dr. Anderson's clinic started getting visits from people in other towns who'd heard about the boy who understood animals. But Johnny never lost his humility or let the fame go to his head. "Johnny," said a reporter who came to do a story, "do you consider yourself an animal genius?" "No," Johnny replied, smiling. "I just really like them and pay attention to what they're trying to tell me." "And what do they say?" "Often they say they're scared or sad or in pain, just like people, only in a different way." The story about Johnny ran in the regional newspaper and brought even more people seeking help. But Mr. Harold and Johnny's family always made sure the boy didn't get overwhelmed. "Johnny," said Mr. Harold, "you're helping a lot of people and animals, but don't forget you also need to have fun and be a kid." "I know, Mr. Harold, and I do have fun working with the critters. I know you enjoy it, but you also like playing ball, hanging out with friends. It's important to keep those things too." Johnny agreed, and always kept a balance between his work with animals and his normal kid activities. One day, when Johnny was 13, a case came in that would test all his skills. A rancher brought in a bull that had become extremely aggressive after being attacked by wild dogs. The animal wouldn't let anyone near and had already injured 2 workers. "Dr. Anderson," said the rancher, "if you can't tame this bull, I'll have to put him down." Johnny looked at the animal and saw something that reminded him of the first difficult bull he'd faced years earlier. "He's been hurt badly," Johnny told Dr. Anderson. "Now he's scared of everything. Do you think you can help?" "I can try, but it'll take a lot of time." "How much time?" "I don't know, maybe months." The rancher grew impatient. "Months? I need a quick fix." "Sir," Johnny said, looking straight at the man, "if you want a quick fix, maybe you should look elsewhere. I only work at the pace the critters need." Dr. Anderson was proud of Johnny's firm stance. The rancher, seeing he had few options, agreed to wait as long as necessary. Johnny started working with the bull, which had been named Storm due to its explosive temperament. In the first few days, Johnny just observed the animal from a distance, trying to understand its behavior patterns. "He's terrified of any sudden movements," Johnny said to Dr. Anderson, "and he gets especially nervous when grown men approach him." "Why?" "Because whoever hurt him must have been men. Maybe he associates grown men with danger." Johnny decided to try a different approach. Instead of trying to get close directly, he began working with Storm through Thunder. "Hi, Storm," Johnny said, bringing Thunder into the pasture next to him. "I want you to meet my friend Thunder." Storm watched Thunder with interest. It was clear he recognized that the other bull was calm and happy. Johnny started playing with Thunder in front of Storm, showing how a bull could trust humans. "Look, Storm," Johnny said, petting Thunder. "See how he's not afraid of me," Storm observed. Everything with growing attention. After 2 weeks of this approach, Storm began showing curiosity about Johnny. "He's getting interested," Johnny told Dr. Anderson. "I think I can try getting closer." Johnny started leaving food for Storm, always speaking softly to the animal. "Hey, big fella," Johnny would say. "Brought something tasty for you." Storm ate the food but always kept his distance from Johnny. Slowly, very slowly, Johnny reduced the gap. First, he placed the food 10 feet away, then 8, then 5. It took 2 months before Storm allowed Johnny to get near the fence. "Good boy," Johnny said when he managed to approach the fence without Storm backing away. "You're learning to trust." Dr. Anderson watched the whole process, fascinated by Johnny's patience and persistence. "How do you not give up?" Dr. Anderson asked. "Because I know he wants to trust. He just needs time to forget the bad things that happened to him." By the 3rd month, Johnny touched Storm for the first time. The animal trembled slightly, but didn't retreat. "Good, Storm," Johnny said gently. "See? I won't hurt you." From that moment on, progress was faster. Storm began waiting for Johnny's visits and clearly brightened up when he arrived. By the 4th month, Johnny had Storm responding to simple commands. "Unbelievable," said the rancher, who had come to see the progress. "That bull was impossible to handle." "He wasn't impossible," Johnny said. "He was just scared and needed someone who understood that." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The success with Storm brought Johnny even more recognition, but it also brought something unexpected: jealousy from other professionals. Dr. Peterson, a vet from Riverdale, started spreading rumors that Johnny used questionable methods with the animals. It's impossible for a kid to get these results without using some kind of drug or special equipment, Dr. Peterson told anyone who would listen. The rumors reached Dr. Anderson, who grew concerned. "Johnny," Dr. Anderson said, "people are saying you use unnatural methods with the animals." Johnny was confused. "Unnatural methods, what does that mean?" "Some folks think you use drugs or special gear." Johnny laughed at the idea. "But Dr. Anderson, you've seen everything I do. You know I just talk to the critters." "I know, Johnny, but some people don't believe these results can come from just talking and patience." The situation got more complicated when Dr. Peterson filed a formal complaint with the Regional Veterinary Board, requesting an investigation into Johnny's methods. "This is serious," Dr. Anderson told Johnny's family. "They could ban Johnny from working with animals until he proves there's nothing wrong." Mary was outraged. "My boy doesn't do anything wrong. He's just kind to the critters." "I know, Mary, but we'll have to prove it officially." The investigation was scheduled for the following week. Johnny would have to demonstrate his methods in front of a committee of experienced veterinarians. "I'm nervous," Johnny told his parents the night before the investigation. "What if they don't believe me?" "Son," said Joe, "you've always been honest and gentle with animals. If you just keep being yourself, everything will work out. And if it doesn't, then we'll find another way for you to help the critters," said Mary. "But I'm sure it'll all be fine." On the day of the investigation, 5 experienced veterinarians gathered at the ranch to observe Johnny at work. Dr. Peterson was there, hoping to prove his accusations. "Young man," said the committee's chairman, "we'll bring in an animal you've never seen before. We want to see how you work from start to finish." "All right," said Johnny, trying to steady his nerves. The animal brought in was a mare that had developed extreme aggression after an accident. Not even her owner could get close to her. Johnny watched the mare for a few minutes before doing anything. "She's in a lot of pain," Johnny told the committee. "Not just physical pain, but emotional pain too." "How do you know that?" asked one of the veterinarians. "By the way she holds her head, the way she looks at people. She's suffering." Johnny slowly approached the corral where the mare stood. "Hi, beautiful," Johnny said softly. "I know you're hurting, but I'll try to help you." The mare eyed him warily but didn't show immediate aggression. Johnny sat on the ground, as he always did, to show he wasn't a threat. "You've been happy before, haven't you?" Johnny said, watching the mare. "I can see in your eyes you remember better times." The mare tilted her head as if listening. Johnny kept talking to the animal for over an hour, always keeping his distance, always respecting her space. The veterinarians watched in silence, impressed by the boy's patience. Slowly the mare began moving closer to the fence. "That's it," said Johnny. "You're seeing you don't have to be afraid of me." When the mare finally let Johnny touch her, all the veterinarians were stunned. "How did you do that?" asked the committee's chairman. "I showed her I care about her pain, and that I want to help, not force her." Dr. Peterson made one last objection, but this doesn't prove he didn't use some substance on the animal. "Dr. Peterson," said the chairman, "we watched everything from start to finish. There was no use of any substance or equipment. This boy truly has a natural gift." The investigation concluded with an official statement that Johnny didn't use questionable methods. He just had an exceptional ability to communicate with animals. Dr. Peterson left the ranch embarrassed and defeated. "Johnny," said the chairman, "in 40 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. You have a unique talent." "Thank you," said Johnny, relieved it had all worked out. "I'd like to make a proposal." How about you give talks to other veterinarians, teaching them your methods? Johnny looked at his parents, silently asking for their opinion. Only on weekends, said Mary, and only if it's not too far from here. Of course, said the veterinarian. We can arrange regional meetings right here. Johnny agreed, happy to share what he'd learned with other professionals. In the following months, Johnny began giving informal talks to veterinarians in the region. He always emphasized the same principles: patience, respect, and understanding the emotional needs of animals. The secret, Johnny would say in his talks, isn't about controlling the animals. It's about understanding them and earning their trust. The veterinarians were fascinated by the simplicity and effectiveness of Johnny's methods. Dr. Johnny, one veterinarian said during a talk. Johnny had earned the honorary title, "You've revolutionized the way I work." "That's great," Johnny replied, "because when we change how we treat critters, they become happier, and so do we." Johnny's talks became so popular that veterinarians from other states started coming to attend, but Johnny always kept the same conditions: only on weekends, only in the region, and always making time to be a kid too. When Johnny turned 15, Dr. Anderson made a special proposal. "Johnny, how about we open a center specialized in rehabilitating traumatized animals?" "Really?" Johnny said, excited. "Really? It would be a place where you could work on more complex cases and teach other professionals at the same time." Johnny discussed the proposal with his family. "It's a big responsibility," said Joe. "Are you sure you want to take this on?" "Dad, I think this is what my gift is for, to help critters who've suffered and teach others to do the same." "And you'd still live here with us?" asked Mary. "Of course." The center would be right nearby on Mr. Harold's property. Mr. Harold had offered part of his ranch for the project, thrilled with the idea. "It'd be an honor to have a center like that here," Mr. Harold said. The center was built over the course of a year. It was a place specially designed to care for traumatized animals, with spacious, safe, and comfortable areas. Johnny was involved in every step of the planning, always thinking about the animal's well-being. "Every critter needs a different kind of environment," Johnny explained to the architects. "Some need open spaces, others need more enclosed places where they feel protected." The center was equipped with different types of environments to meet each animal's specific needs. When it finally opened, Johnny was 16 and had become a regional authority on animal behavior. "Johnny," Dr. Anderson said at the inauguration, "this center will help thousands of animals over the years." "I hope so," Johnny replied. "And I hope others learn to work this way too." The first animal taken in by the center was a dog that had been abandoned and developed extreme aggression. Johnny applied all the methods he developed over the years: careful observation, gradual approach, respect for the animal's pace. In 3 months, the dog was fully rehabilitated and adopted by a loving family. "It works," Dr. Anderson said, moved. "Your methods really work." "They work because they're based on love," Johnny replied. "A critter that receives love learns to give love too." Over the next few years, the center rehabilitated hundreds of animals. Dogs, cats, horses, bulls, mares, all found a place at the center to heal their emotional wounds. Johnny became a respected specialist, but never lost the simplicity and warmth that always defined his work. When he turned 18, he received an offer to study veterinary medicine at a university in Washington, D.C. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Dr. Anderson said. "You could graduate and come back to work at the center with even greater knowledge." Johnny talked at length with his family about the decision. "Son," Mary said, "you've always wanted to be a vet. I think the time has come. But I'll miss you all and the critters here." "We'll miss you too," said Joe, "but it's important for you to study and prepare yourself even better to help the critters." "What about Thunder?" asked Johnny, worried about his old friend. "Thunder will be here when you get back," said Mr. Harold, "and you can visit on weekends." Johnny decided to accept the offer, but insisted he'd return every weekend to keep working at the center. At the university, Johnny quickly stood out. His professors were amazed by his hands-on knowledge of animal behavior. Johnny said, "Here's animal behavior, Professor. You have experiences no textbook can teach. I learned by working directly with the critters." Johnny replied. "They're the best teachers." Johnny shared his knowledge with his classmates, always stressing the importance of treating animals with respect and understanding. Many of them completely changed their approach to veterinary medicine after seeing his methods. During his 4 years in college, Johnny kept coming home every weekend. The center grew and became a national benchmark for rehabilitating traumatized animals. Veterinarians from all over the country came to learn from Johnny and his team. "Dr. Johnny," said a vet from Los Angeles, "your methods should be taught in every vet school in the country." "Maybe one day," Johnny replied. "For now, I'm happy teaching those who want to learn." When he graduated, Johnny returned, home for good. The center had become a reference, but he never forgot his humble roots. "Thunder," Johnny said, reuniting with his old friend, now over 15, "I'm back to stay." The bull, despite his age, still lit up when he saw Johnny. "You were my first teacher," Johnny said, stroking the animal's muzzle. "You taught me that love and patience can heal any wound." Dr. Anderson, who'd followed Johnny's journey, was moved. "Johnny, you've become more than a vet. You've become a healer of souls." "I've learned critters and people aren't so different," Johnny replied. "Everyone needs love, respect, and understanding." The center kept growing. Johnny built a team of vets who shared his philosophy. "Our mission," he told them, "isn't just to heal physical wounds. It's to heal emotional ones too." Over time, Johnny began writing books about his methods. They became industry standards and were translated into other languages. But Johnny never stopped being the simple boy who talked to animals. Every morning, before work, he visited Thunder. "Morning, big fella," he'd say. "Ready to help more critters today?" Thunder, old as he was, still responded warmly to his lifelong friend. Years passed. Johnny married a vet he'd met in college who shared his passion for animals. They had 2 kids who grew up playing at the center and learning early to love and respect critters. "Daddy," Johnny's eldest said at 8, "I want to talk to critters like you." "Son," Johnny replied, "anyone can talk to critters. You just need kindness and patience. But not everyone gets it like you, because not everyone stops to listen to what critters are trying to say." Johnny taught his kids the same principles he'd learned: respect, patience, and love. The center became a global model for animal rehab. Professionals from around the world came to study Johnny's methods. But for Johnny, his greatest pride was still seeing a traumatized critter learn to trust humans again. "Every critter we help," Johnny would tell his team, "is a victory against cruelty and neglect." When Johnny turned 40, the center had helped thousands of animals and trained hundreds of veterinarians specializing in animal behavior. Mr. Harold, now elderly, watched proudly at what that little ranch had become. "Johnny," Mr. Harold said, "when I first saw you handling Thunder, I knew you were special, but I never imagined you'd come this far." "I got here because people believed in me," Johnny replied. "You, my parents, Dr. Anderson. Without you, none of this would have happened." Thunder had passed away a few years earlier, but Johnny kept a plaque in his honor at the center. "Thunder, the first teacher, the greatest friend. He taught me that strength and kindness can go hand in hand," Johnny often said when telling Thunder's story. Johnny's work influenced an entire generation of veterinarians. Veterinary schools began including his techniques in their curriculum. "The revolution Dr. Johnny started," a university professor said at a conference, "has forever changed how we treat traumatized animals." But Johnny remained the same humble person who had begun it all by talking to an angry bull on a ranch in the countryside. Every morning he walked through the pastures of the center, observing the animals in rehabilitation, speaking softly to each one. "Good morning, folks," Johnny would say. "How are you all today?" And the animals, each in their own way, responded, some with a wag of the tail, others with gentle whinnies, others simply coming closer for affection. To Johnny, those were the most important conversations of the day. One day, when Johnny was 50, he received a visit from an 8-year-old boy brought by his parents. "Dr. Johnny," the boy's father said, "my son has the same gift you had as a child. He can calm any critter." Johnny looked at the boy and saw in his eyes the same special connection he had felt in his own childhood. "What's your name?" Johnny asked, kneeling in front of the child. "Billy," the boy answered shyly. "Billy, do you like talking to critters?" "I do, but people think it's weird." Johnny smiled, remembering himself at that age. Billy, there's nothing weird about loving animals. It's a very special gift. Can you teach me how to do it right? Of course. But first, let me tell for you a story. The story of a boy who also liked talking to critters. And Johnny began telling Billy the story of Thunder, the center, and how he had discovered that his gift wasn't for impressing people, but for helping animals. Billy listened carefully to every word, his eyes shining with excitement. Dr. Johnny, Billy said at the end, I want to help sad critters too. Then let's start today, Johnny replied, taking Billy to meet the animals at the center. And so, the cycle began again. Johnny had found someone to carry on his work, someone who understood that talking to animals wasn't about power over them, but about love and respect. In the years that followed, Billy became Johnny's protege, learning not just the techniques, but also the values that guided the center's work. Billy, Johnny would say, always remember our job isn't to impress people, it's to heal the broken hearts of animals. I'll remember, Dr. Johnny. And Billy truly did. Just as Johnny had learned from Thunder, Billy learned from Johnny. That true strength comes from kindness, and that the greatest talent in the world means nothing if it isn't used to help those in need. The center kept growing, helping more and more animals, training more and more professionals in animal behavior. But for Johnny, the greatest joy was still seeing a frightened animal learn to trust again, a wounded critter find happiness once more. This is what I was born for, Johnny used to say, to be the bridge between suffering and healing, between fear and trust. And so, the boy who once stopped in the middle of a dusty corral to talk to an angry bull became one of the country's greatest experts in animal behavior. But he never forgot that it all began with a simple conversation between friends, him and Thunder, two hearts that understood each other despite being different species. Today, at 60 years old, Johnny still works at the center he founded. He still talks to the animals, still believes love and patience can heal any wound, and every morning as he walks through the pastures of the center, he whispers a prayer of gratitude for having found his purpose in life, caring for those who cannot speak for themselves, but have so much to teach those who know how to listen. Billy, now 30, runs the center alongside Johnny. Together, they've trained dozens of other professionals who carry the same philosophy to other regions of the country. Dr. Johnny, Billy said recently, you changed my life and the lives of thousands of animals. We just followed our hearts, Johnny replied, and the heart never makes a mistake when it chooses love. Johnny's legacy isn't just in the books he wrote or the awards he received, it's in every animal that learned to trust again, in every professional who learned to treat critters with respect, in every child who understood that kindness is a strength, not a weakness. And it all started with an 8-year-old boy who wasn't afraid to stand face to face with an angry bull because he knew that behind the aggression was just a wounded heart in need of tenderness. The story of Johnny and Thunder became legend in the region. Children grow up hearing about the boy who talked to animals, and many are inspired to follow similar paths. But Johnny always makes sure to teach that you don't need a special gift to love animals. Anyone can learn to respect and care for them. The real gift, Johnny often says, is love. And that's a gift we all have. And so, the story. That began with fear, pressure, and near tragedy, turned into one of love, respect, and dedication. Johnny proved that when we follow our hearts and use our talents to help others, we can transform not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. Today, when he visits Thunder's grave in the small pet cemetery he created at the center, Johnny still whispers, "Thank you, big fella, for teaching me that true strength comes from love." And the wind rustling the trees around him seems to carry the tender reply of an old friend who will never be forgotten. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of Johnny and Thunder's story. Where are you watching from? If you have something to share with us, leave your sincere words in the comments. Do you think Johnny made the right choices? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.